Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a daily devotional that has a really transformative idea. What if the key to effective prayer isn't just asking for things, but declaring them? The whole argument here is that when you anchor your prayers in the specific promises from Scripture, well, that can change everything. So, let's break down exactly how.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get into that core concept, the connection between God's promises and our prayers. Then we'll see how this totally shifts prayer from, just pleading for something to actually declaring it with authority. After that, we'll look at some biblical examples the source gives, figure out how you can apply this to your own life, and then we'll wrap up by looking at the community that's built around this idea.
All right, so first up, the promise-prayer connection. What's the foundation for this whole way of thinking? Well, it really starts by getting at a frustration that I think a lot of us have probably felt when it comes to prayer. And that frustration really boils down to this question. Why do so many of our prayers feel like they just fizzle out? They don't seem to manifest. It's a feeling a lot of people can relate to, and this devotional offers a pretty specific diagnosis for why that happens.
And here's the reason it gives. The issue isn't that we're not being sincere enough. The problem, according to this source, is that our prayers are, and I'm quoting here, detached from God's promises and are rooted in uncertainty or human desire. Basically, if a prayer is based only on what we want, it lacks a real foundation.
So what's the solution? Well, it's something the source calls word-based prayer. And the idea is really simple but powerful. You just shift your starting point. Instead of starting with what you want, you start with a promise you find in Scripture. You find what God has already said, and you build your prayer on that solid ground.
Okay, so this brings us to our next point, and this is a big one. Because this idea doesn't just change what you pray for, it completely changes how you pray. It's a fundamental shift from pleading to declaring.
And you can really see the difference laid out here. On one side, you've got prayers that come from our own desires. The source calls this passive pleading. It's rooted in uncertainty, and it can even lead to more doubt and fear. But on the other side, you have prayers that are based on God's promises. This becomes an authoritative declaration. It carries divine authority, it builds boldness, it builds faith. It's a total game changer.
And this quote really sums it all up. It moves believers from passive pleading to authoritative declaration. And look at the result, producing tangible results and glorifying God. So prayer stops being just a hopeful wish and turns into a confident declaration of something that's already been promised. That, according to the source, is how you see real, tangible results.
So this isn't just a theory, right? The devotional actually points to some major figures in the Bible to back this up, arguing that they modeled this exact principle.
Let's start with Abraham. The devotional points out that his prayers were so effective because they were grounded in a very specific promise from God that he would be the father of many nations. So, when Abraham prayed, it wasn't just wishful thinking. He was basically just reminding God of what he had already promised. He was holding God to his word.
Next up, the psalmist. If you read the Psalms, you see this all over the place, right? The writer is constantly declaring God's promises in their prayers. And the source connects this practice directly to real-world outcomes like getting deliverance, protection, and divine favor.
And of course, the devotional presents Jesus Christ as the ultimate model of this. It makes the point that he operated with this total assurance that the Father's word was faithful. Every prayer was built on that unwavering foundation.
Okay, so we've talked about the concept, the what, and the why. Now let's get practical and talk about the how. Because the source is really big on turning this idea into an actual daily practice.
And it really boils down to a super simple two-step process. Step 1, you've got to identify promises in Scripture that actually relate to what you're going through. Whatever your personal circumstances are, find a promise that speaks to it. Then, step 2, declare those promises out loud, in your prayers, every single day, with faith and with confidence.
And to make it even easier to start, the devotional has a really clear call to action and basically says, look, don't get overwhelmed trying to find 100 promises. Just pick one. Find one key promise today, really think about it, meditate on it, and make that the foundation of your prayers.
All right, and for our final section, it's important to know that this devotional isn't just a book you read on your own. It's actually the hub for a whole community, and it's very clear about how you can get involved.
So the big picture mission is called Operation 500 Million Souls for Christ, and there are a few different ways they invite people to get involved. You can join as a prayer partner, you can be a volunteer missionary, or you can become what they call a kingdom investor, which means supporting the mission financially. And you can see just how organized this whole thing is. They have this global prayer schedule all laid out. So whether you're in Nigeria, the US, the UK, Israel, you know exactly when to tune in and pray with everyone else. It's a really structured way to build a huge, worldwide prayer network. And that really brings us back to the core idea, the big question that this whole devotional leaves us with. What is the potential impact of basing our requests not on just hope, but on a pre-existing promise? What changes when prayer shifts from, I hope this happens, to, I am declaring what you already said will happen? It's a really powerful thought to chew on. Thanks for joining me for this.